At the end of the 1990s, after 55 years of painting, Jean-Michel Coulon reached the pinnacle of his artistic exploration with his abstract miniatures. From these intimate compositions emanates the great power of their vertical structure. Upon his return to Paris in 2000 after 30 years in Brussels, he immediately switched to collage. He was 80 years old. His creation became frenetic, joyful, and intense, as evidenced by the floor of his studio where he carefully aligned his works by size. Jean-Michel Coulon had already worked with paper, at least newspaper. He used it on his handmade frames made from rough and porous reclaimed wood to soften the contact. On newspaper, the paint is generally quite thin. Sometimes a remnant of paper persists on the oil paint, as seen here in the center. The paper is fully embedded in the paint. It is likely a test for the intensity of a color that Jean-Michel Coulon subsequently forgot about. Since Braque and Picasso in 1912, many painters such as Ernst, Matisse, Rauschenberg, Schwitters, and Villeglay have engaged in collage, pasted paper, cut paper, or cutouts, depending on the artist. Jean-Michel Coulon's collage distinguishes itself from that of other artists. The first uniqueness lies in the mastery and persistence of his vertical signature, which he had achieved with his painting. With this new technique, the coherence of his work remains intact. The second particularity is that it is done on his original oil paintings. To our knowledge, this is a completely innovative technique, which Jean-Michel Coulon is the first and only one to pioneer. The mystery of the underlying work thus always remains intact. Jean-Michel reworks the large formats he had presented at the Salon des Réalités Nouvelles. He begins by restructuring the work with oil paint, as shown here. The final result will bear no resemblance to this structure and will be dominated by long vertical strips. He applies his papers, sourced from magazines, newspapers, or sheets of paper painted with gouache. His immediate environment influences his compositions. Here, it is the former Nico Hotel in Paris. Sometimes the paper composition is light, relying mainly on a restructuring of space and a contrast of colors. The fragments of words amplify the effect of disparity. And notice how deeply the underlying work is sanded down. Here, the collage is denser. The original oil painting is camouflaged, enriched, revisited. Was it dark? Cheerful? We will never know. However, the composition is framed with paint, a sign that Jean-Michel Coulon works with both mediums simultaneously. Here, the collage is also dense and omnipresent. We will see that the sources of inspiration were numerous in the artist's environment. From his family stronghold in Saint-Georges-de-Didon, he writes,
"One could spend all their time watching the sun and the trees."
One of his favorite walks was along the quays of the Seine in front of the Beaugrenelle Towers, which he found too short. The Bois de Boulogne was also one of his favorite destinations, no matter the season. The collages were created during a period when the artist was clearly delighted with his exploration of artistic expression. The pioneers of collage are naturally present in Jean-Michel Coulon's extensive artistic library.